Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome you all to my channel. In this video I interview Dr. Melvin Mahone, a former member of law enforcement and a Vietnam veteran who is currently a professor of sociology and criminal justice at Paine College in Augusta, Georgia. In our conversation we talk about everything from PTSD to police reform to his time in Vietnam, as well as what he tells police trainees about how to interact with the public. So without further ado, let's begin. All right, so let's go ahead and get into these questions. Again, thank you for coming on, Dr. Mahone. And so my first question to you is, where are you from originally?
I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. And what was life like growing up in Chicago when you were growing up?
At first, when we moved over there, I came from the housing projects.
Okay.
And we moved on to 1527 South Hamlin.
Okay.
It was predominantly Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But as time moved on, it turned into a black community.
Okay, so like gentrification essentially?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. White flight happened? Or?
White flight.
Okay.
And it was gangs.
Okay.
It turned to a haven of gangs.
Okay. Did your family come to Chicago as part of like the Great Migration? Say, are you like the first generation Chicago, or were your family there for a little while?
First generation.
Okay, so where's your family from originally before they came to Chicago?
Mississippi.
I'm sorry?
Mississippi and Georgia.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course you're now teaching in Georgia, so kind of the full circle. So did your family kind of protect you from like when the gangs were kind of the rise of gangs in Chicago? Were they kind of protecting you? Kind of what was that kind of protective bubble like when it came to like the rise of gangs in Chicago?
Well, we had the Cobras and the Vice Lords, and they were rival gangs.
Okay.
And they used to fight each other. And I was going to grade school. I was bullied all the time.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard growing up in the gang-related community.
Okay. And were you like protected by your family, by like
Yes.
the community? Okay.
My father was a minister,
Okay.
and they called me Square, and they signified all the time.
Oh yeah. Okay. And is that what drove you to want to go into law enforcement? So kind of to push back against some of that kind of negativity?
Yes. And also the fact that I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
In Vietnam. That was a deciding factor to go into law enforcement.
Okay. What's the reaction of like your friends and family when you decided to go into law enforcement?
They said it was good. They were glad that I chose that field because it went hand in hand with the training I received in boot camp and in Vietnam.
Okay. And were you drafted into Vietnam or
No, I volunteered.
You volunteered. Okay.
Went straight to Vietnam.
Okay. What was your experience like over there?
Experience in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Hot.
Oh wow. So combat.
I didn't see that much combat. I was in about 2 or 3 firefights.
Mm-hmm.
I went on mine sweeps. I went on patrol. I was in a helicopter that got shot down.
Oh wow. Okay. Were you injured in that situation?
No.
Okay. So, and one of the things, I was born in 81, so I was born in the period after Vietnam. But what I've read about it is that there was some kind of, the racial dynamics, there was some kind of conflict, where in some cases people were kind of tighter, but then also there was inequality. So what was your experience in regards to any racism, or do you not see racism while you were in the Marine Corps in Vietnam?
Well, I was a product of racism
Mm-hmm.
in boot camp and in Vietnam.
Okay. What were some of those experiences? What did you what happened when you were in those places?
I was beat up every day in boot camp. I was the
Okay.
only black in the platoon.
Okay. So kind of like singled out essentially.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I had uncles who were in the army, and they were talking about it was at a time when you could like physically hit like privates and stuff like that, where now there's just a lot different. But at that time, like they could beat you up and they can hit you and essentially get away with it. So just very kind of, and it seems like that was definitely the case when you were in Vietnam as well,
Hmm.
or in training.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Do you? Because I know you do motivational speaking. Do you still do stuff with the military now? Do you ever go back and talk to like soldiers or?
No, I go. I got 100% disability
Okay,
due to Agent Orange,
okay, okay.
and I go to the VA to get get checked out all the time.
Okay, okay,
I see a
okay.
psychiatrist, and I see uh, a cardiologist.
Now, just for clarification, so when I was looking at your kind of background, you were a federal protective officer, a corrections officer, and a patrol officer. Is that correct?
Right, I was a federal protective officer,
Mm-hmm.
correctional officer, correctional treatment specialist, parole agent, probation and parole officer, investigator, drug counselor, mental health counselor, social service career training,
Okay.
paralegal, resident advisor in a halfway house.
Oh wow, wow. So pretty extensive.
That was
Actually,
in
one.
that was in law enforcement. I worked
Mm,
in all three areas of law enforcement. I worked in law enforcement as a police. I
mm-hmm.
worked as a probation officer and parole agent with the courts, and
Okay.
I worked as a correctional officer and correctional treatment specialist in corrections. So
Okay.
I covered all of it.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely. So actually, one question: what does a federal protective officer do?
Federal protective officer protect government buildings and government property and the people in it.
Okay. So I mean, are you able to
You
talk about
ever
these?
go to have you ever been to the federal building?
Yes, yeah.
Those are federal protective officers.
Okay, so the people who are patrolling, who are out front. Okay, okay, okay. Um, well, am I able to talk about any specific assignments you had as a federal protective officers, like some places that you might have been stationed? Or was that off limits?
Well, when I was there, when I was a
Hmm.
federal protective officer, I received a suggestion award for suggesting that the pistol range was unsafe. They had
Okay.
shrapnel in the background walls, so when
Hmm.
you shot, it would ricochet
Yeah.
off the embankment.
Okay.
I was on duty on patrol where I used a car to patrol the property, a squad car the squad to protect the property,
Hmm.
and that's about it.
Okay. 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 And so my next question deals with your interactions with other officers when you were in law enforcement. So, last year I saw a film called Red, White, and Blue. It was part of the Small Axe series, and it was about a black British police officer in the 1980s in London. And it displays some of the issues that he kind of dealt with, in the 1980s at a time where there weren't very many black officers, both from his fellow officers as well as from some of the people in the communities he patrolled. So in the 1970s, when you were in law enforcement, do you have any kind of negative interactions with other police officers or other officers?
As a correction officer,
Hmm.
I saw a lot of racism
Okay.
toward
Okay.
black inmates from
Okay.
white officers.
Hmm.
One specific incident was when a correction officer put marijuana on a person's bunk.
Okay.
And when the person came to his bunk, he locked them up in solitary confinement
Okay.
for having
Okay.
marijuana,
Yeah.
even though he planted it on his bed.
Okay. Okay. So what
And I
happened?
broke
Okay.
up fights. I broke up fights. I got hurt breaking up fights between inmates, black
Hmm.
inmates, and white officers.
Okay. Okay. So what happened to the officer that planted the marijuana on the bunk?
Nothing.
Okay. So yeah, even though yeah, so it's kind of like the administrator kind of let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Were you ever targeted by other officers in any kind of way, like either with like slurs or just kind of?
Yes,
Oh
yes, I
yeah.
was.
Okay.
In the federal prison system, Bureau of Prisons, I was one of the only black correctional officers,
Mhm.
and they called me nigger.
Okay. Okay.
After they call me black, nigger,
Mhm.
different ethnic derogatory names,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I was treated as such as well.
Okay. Was there any like so let's say as you were kind of up for like promotions and things like that, were there any like efforts to block you, or were you able to kind of move up as a law enforcement
I
officer?
moved up fast. I came
Hmm.
in top of my class.
Okay. Okay.
Out of a class of 30, I came in top, in number one in training.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I worked in Maryland FCI and Chicago MCC. There, I made another suggestion to the centralized visiting rooms, and it
Okay.
saved them millions of dollars.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. 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 And were you rewarded for that?
Yes,
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So there were
I
some
was
good. Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
promoted.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, it wasn't a situation where like it was like like the entire administration was kind of against you. It was more so there were some individuals within the chain of command that were kind of problematic.
Right.
Okay. 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 What about the inmates? So just kind of to put it in context. So in that same kind of film that was starring John Boyega, when they were talking about this black British police officer, the people in the community would actually call him names. They would call him coconut, which is basically the idea of white on the inside, black on the outside. Did you ever get any specific like hate from the like either the inmates when you're in corrections officer or even like as a parole agent? Maybe some people who like looked at you
I
in a
was
negative way.
threatened
Okay.
along with other black correctional officers. Some correctional officers, vehicles were firebombed,
Okay. Okay.
so it's pretty hairy.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I mean, that's scary. Okay. I hope you're enjoying the video, but before we go any further, I just want to quickly shout out my Patreon page, Dr. Jason Freeman Reacts. On the page, I have full unedited reactions from movies such as the classic 1995 film Dead Presidents and the 2020 film A Quiet Place Part 2. I also have reactions for entire seasons of shows, including season 2 of House of the Dragon and the first season of Doctor Who on Disney Plus, starring Scuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson. And for those of you who purchase my highest tier, you'll be receiving a few tokens of my appreciation, including a mug, a tote bag, and some clothing with a Diaspora Dispatch logo designed by yours truly. To get access to all this, just go to my Patreon page and sign up for one of the tiers. You can find a link for it in the description of this video, or just type patreon.com/DRJASONFREEMAN. Thank you for listening. Now back to the video. Okay. And so you went from law enforcement into academia, so becoming a professor, sociology and criminal justice professor, correct?
Right.
Okay. So what led to that transition? So going from those years of law enforcement, where you kind of worked in so many different jobs, to now you want to go into academia and to be a teacher, essentially. So
Well,
what led to that change?
I developed PTSD in
Okay.
1980,
Okay. Okay.
and I started working as a professor in 1997.
Okay. Okay.
I was an adjunct, and I trained police cadets at the Chicago Police Academy.
Okay. Okay. So you went from law enforcement to training, kind of trainees, and then into kind of. Did you ever like transition like fully into just like students, or was it always like some kind of trainees or?
It was always training and being a
Okay.
professor.
Okay. 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 Interesting. Interesting. And so when you were going from like law enforcement into like academic like teaching, was there a bit of culture shock? So you also mentioned being in the Marines, so kind of going from the kind of regimented military police, and now you're in a like a much more
It was
um
a culture shock
yeah.
because now I wasn't interface or interacting with the law enforcement community.
Okay.
I wasn't doing that anymore, and I wasn't in the prisons anymore.
Okay.
It was a pleasant
Hmm.
relief to leave law enforcement and go to a soft profession such as
Okay.
teaching.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you did mention PTSD, and I know I think it was in 1980 when they actually did add that to the DSM, like for the really for the first time because of um, essentially like protest or essentially lobbying to get that included in the DSM. So when you were getting essentially being diagnosed with PTSD, was there any kind of negative pushback from people, kind of with because it was a fairly new diagnosis at the time?
Yeah, it was a fairly new diagnosis,
Okay,
and
was
at
it?
that time they were grappled with how to treat PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the medications as they have now.
Okay, okay, and so it's been much improved over since that time.
Yes, they have.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. And I do want to talk about kind of destigmatizing mental health, but that's one aspect that you were kind of there at the very beginning when this diagnosis was new and kind of went through it yourself. So
Hmm.
when it comes to destigmatizing this stuff with kind of people now, I can definitely see having that firsthand experience. Okay, you've gone through it yourself.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, okay. Um, so being, and so I'm looking at your entire career. So being in within academia, was there any pushback at any point from fellow like professors or from students because of your law enforcement background, especially as the kind of views on law enforcement has evolved and changed over time? Has there been any kind of negative pushback
No,
against?
they held on to me because I had the experience.
Okay,
I
okay,
had first-hand experience in law enforcement, and I knew
okay,
both parts.
okay. So it's never like a negative kind of
No,
stigma of being in law enforcement,
no,
having been in law enforcement.
no.
Okay, okay. Interesting. Okay, good. Yeah, and that's the thing. So I think about my own experiences with law enforcement. So when I was going to my church when I was younger, we had a police officer who was actually a member of that church, one of the sweetest, nicest guys like ever that I've ever met. And not just over the years, I've had really good experiences with law enforcement, but I definitely know, teaching sociology, I get kind of the opposite side of that. So people talking about the negative experiences. And when you do teach, do you ever kind of cover that? You talk about maybe some of the negativity that people may face as police officers in the field,
Yes, I do.
and do you talk about like so how do you tell people to deal with that as they're kind of going out there?
Well, I tell them to respect law enforcement.
Hmm.
If they get stopped or profiled in the community, to cooperate with the police
Hmm.
and venture views in court when you go to court.
Okay, okay. So like so basically not doing in the situation, wait till you get into court and then kind of talk about it there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so really good advice. Yeah, during the pandemic, I was driving from North Carolina to here in Maryland, and I got stopped on 95, and so that was definitely something. Teaching law enforcement, and now I'm in a situation where I'm dealing with law enforcement, and it was a good experience. Like I would have my hand on the wheel. My wife was there. I was talking to him. I did say I didn't think I was speeding that much, but I took the ticket. I paid the ticket. But yeah, definitely, I think that's really good advice because again, in that situation, it's tense for both the person in the car as well as the police officer because they don't know what they're walking into either.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay, okay. And so you talk to trainees as well, police trainees about how to also deal with the public and how to try to engender that trust as well.
Right.
Okay, 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 okay. So thinking about in a more macro level, macro view, what do you think can be done? So not even just as in your own situation as a teacher, but across the board to build that trust in law enforcement, in particular in communities of color that might have had negative experiences.
I, it's my firm belief that the police go through training
Hmm.
and go through communications and training.
Okay.
That would stop a lot of the racism and a lot of the police brutality that's
Yeah.
going on now.
Okay.
When you train them and tell them what to do and what they shouldn't do,
Okay.
and when you communicate with them
Yeah.
and tell them what they should do and shouldn't do in a community.
Okay. So just starting with the training and then kind of, and what about like accountability when stuff does happen? What do you think should happen when there are some of these incidents like we've seen recently?
Well, they should be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that falls under training and communication.
Okay. I can see that. So my next question deals with changes in kind of the academic world in your time, because I started teaching here at Towson in 2016. Before that was in grad school. And so I'm curious, what has been the biggest change that you've noticed on the college level in either students or how campuses are kind of operated in your time from when you started to now? Like the biggest change in kind of the college.
Technology.
Okay.
Technology.
Okay, in what ways?
Well, a good one in as far as academia and teaching is online instruction or to matriculate through different educational classes.
Yeah.
That's one of the major add-ons to teaching.
And what do you feel about the rise of like online teaching? Because I've heard different views on that. So what do you feel?
I don't like it.
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
like
right.
face to face.
Okay. So you prefer to teach
Right.
face to face. Okay. So how do you deal with so during the pandemic I taught, that's actually one of the reasons I do this. So during the pandemic I did a lot of teaching like online because that's the campus was shut down. So how do you deal with that particular change during the
We
pandemic?
did it online.
So how did you kind of take like? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't
How
enjoy
did I
it.
transition from face to face to online?
Yeah.
I gave out assignments for them, the essay assignments and research assignments.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I coped. That's how I dealt with that.
Okay. And when it went back to face, do you keep anything from when you taught online, or was it kind of just back to kind of the way it was before?
Back to the way it was.
Okay. Yeah, I kept some things because it was just like a little like online, but I could definitely see if, especially you've been teaching a lot longer than me, so you have kind of more established kind of structures than I did. So okay. So you wouldn't want to teach online again?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I could do it. So what's your favorite part of being a college professor? What do you think is the best part of the life?
The best part is I get to teach people when I teach students what I want them to know.
Okay.
And if they teach the prevailing lesson plan
Mm-hmm.
and they learn what I teach, I will be a success.
Okay.
Now, if you found that conversation interesting and or informative, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if you want to learn more about Dr. Mahone or even have him come to your college or organization to give a talk, please let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.